Good evening, mga ka-listeners. I am your host, Christine Grace Cognito,
And I'm Aldy.
and welcome sa kauna-unaang episode ng
The Crammed.
podcast.
Yeah.
Yes!
Welcome, guys.
Welcome, guys. Okay, di na nato ni padugayon. Let's read our first letter coming from Alia's son. So, here's his letter. As a student, during this quarantine pandemic, it's not been great. I've always prided myself for being someone who's functional enough alone because I have a lot of practice in that area. And I'm used to radio silence from my friends, especially with the knowledge that I'm not that sort to reach out first. I thought I'd be fine, peachy, and I was. But when push comes to shove, we're all, unfortunately, social creatures who need a support group in times of great stress. And that sucks. Disclaimer: this is not me confessing my great utter hatred for humankind, though some of us could probably do with a bit of self reflection at least, but rather me, an introvert, kind of violently expressing my distaste for having to grieve over being incapable of properly communicating with other people, even though usually I don't care much for it. I don't mind socializing with the people I care about, and I would like to make more friends. But breaking down over being socially inept and then breaking down over my incapability of being able to express to my friends and my family because communicating feelings what, and that all of that happening simultaneously a few days away from finals. That's just sabotage. Not to mention constantly not knowing how badly I am doing in my class, constantly being detached from the people I'm supposed to spend the next 4 years, and assuming all things might go well, constantly worrying about the weight of my failure. Should I fail to my family who spent so much for this damn thing already? It's a lot, I guess. This letter's going too long, so I'm just going to end this here. I don't know how many people can relate to this. The last time I talked about it was no one. That was hilarious, if only because my sense of humor is skewed too. Anyway, I'm not particularly sure what I'm expecting out of this. Sending this out there is therapeutic, I guess. Regardless of you actually use this letter or not, I do hope that your podcast is successful. Take care of your mental health too, whoever is reading or listening to this. Stream Blue Hour by TXT and Life Goes On by BTS. And that's it. That's the
Wow!
letter.
An army. We have an army. Wow. Kung kinsa man ning nagsulat ani tapos army ka, you have a friend in me. Okay, you can confide in me. What, char. Pero I like the letter. It's very, it's expressive kay siya. It's very well written. Nag-paint ko siya colors sa iyang emotions. Tapos, yes, whoever you are, son. I hope I hope you're listening. I hope makadungog siya aning episode before because we've chosen your letter for this episode. So, what are your thoughts, Christine? What are your initial thoughts pag mo basa sa letter?
Okay, I would like to pick some highlights of his line. He said, or he, I don't know it's a he or it's a she, basta he or she mentioned, ano siya, it said, I've always prided myself for being someone who's functional enough alone because I have a lot of practice in that area. Um, yes, I have encountered many introverted people back when I was high school. Generally speaking, introvert likes to be alone with their thoughts and their reflection, and it's kind of unique to them, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I agree that this is common for introverts to be alone, but I think, son, isolating yourself or shutting yourself away from the society or away from the people could be unhealthy for you. I what are your thoughts about introverted people, Aldi?
Okay, thoughts now about introvert. As an introvert myself, I've always felt like there is this misconception bitaw nga, okay, like, di ba, like, sa beginning sa pandemic, like, there was this meme nga, okay, guys, we're going on lockdown, tapos ang extroverts kay na sad, tapos ang
Yes.
introvert people kay na happy lang sila. Pero I guess, as an introvert myself, as a self-proclaimed introvert, I guess, or a misconception siya na when you're an introvert, you're antisocial, which is not. It's just that you have less of a social battery than extroverted people. Like, panalitan mo ato kong party, kana siya, palitan mo ato kong party, like, dapat pahibawon ko daan nga na ay party kay murag days prior to that mag-build the dog energy, build na ako mindset, okay, ganahan ko mo adto ani mo party, dapat kani ako energy, ako mindset kay directed na bitaw ana. Tapos pagkahuman gani ana nga party kay murag ang battery dayon ang social battery kay mo push. So mo nang naka-relate ko ni Sun na ni Kuya or Ate Sun because like first few days sa pandemic or sa lockdown kamurag okay lang murag this is my forte, this is my habitat. Dili lang ko I don't talk to people. I don't even talk to my family that frequently. So like, pero
Seriously?
oh, dili kay ko. Oh my God. If my parents are listening to this, like, I don't communicate to you na dili siya by choice kadi ko communicate pero it's my nature pero communicate mo ko if kailangan. Basta the thing is like we're bitag as the weeks went on kay murag oh no like I know na murag I don't like socializing that much but this is extreme murag social animals would be tata so murag unsa nimo nang I can relate to Son. Tapos kato yung ingon na I'm not really the type to reach out first. Tapos
Yeah.
ka na in a time of a lockdown na halos ang unsa ni ang lockdown ka murag nag-force og wala gi social interaction murag ganahan na like ganahan murag maabot ang sa point na even though introvert ka kay ikaw ni mo na okay, kailangan ako mo reach out. Pero introvert man ka, so maulaw ka. So murag, okay, kailangan mo ako reach out. Tapos another day fight nga, okay, do these people really want to interact with me? Are they feeling the same things as me? And I guess that's why mo pod gihimo pod na ako ning the Cramp podcast. It's a way for
Oh my
yes,
gosh.
it's a way for my introverted self to have some social interaction. Grabe ka sad, Christine. Pero
Yeah.
like, the Krampus podcast was created in mind. The murag, not all people can reach out. So this podcast will reach out to someone. That's
Yes,
my
that's good, Aldi. Actually, I'm very grateful that I have met you. Yeah,
ah,
because
thank
I,
you.
I'm very kuan ba ako kanang we're opposite. We're a total opposite. I label myself as an extrovert and I also love hanging out with introverts because I have a lot of friends nga introverted gyud. And yeah, it's nice to meet you bisag karon ra ta nag video chat or video call.
Mm. Sana unta no mahumanan yung pandemic para na bitaw we can get back to the usual swing of things. Because feel ako
Yeah.
the pandemic did really heightened negative emotions. And like, how do you ikaw as an extrovert, how do you cope with this pandemic na wala kay social interaction? Kay more than us introverts na we're struggling, I'm sure na someone who loves social interaction is, struggling maybe. So, ginaunsa nimo pag
You know what, Aldi, to be honest, grabe gyud akong adjustments karon nga pandemic. Like, to be honest, I have my mental breakdowns. Kaya na as an extrovert, I love hanging out with people. I'm socially active. Ganahan ko gawas-gawas, ganahan ko magstorya-storya bitaw. And now here comes this pandemic and I feel like I'm lonely. I feel like I'm all alone.
mm,
And night times bitaw, I cry silently in the CR kay, gimingaw ko sa akong mga friends because I I describe my friends as my home. Like it's a noun, diba? Home is a noun. But for me it's an adjective because I could be comfortable to them. I could express myself to them. So yeah, it's very hard for me this pandemic. Hindi gyud ko sanay gyud sa magmukmuk ra sa balay, naara sa akong study table. Ganahan gyud kog social interaction. So yeah, makamingaw gid kaayo ang pre-COVID days before aning COVID. Yeah, it sucks, Aldi,
Mhm.
but we have no
We have no
choice.
choice, Gion.
So, but I'm very happy nga I could get hang out with my blockmates and I also reaching out more people and yeah, napog ko yung mga ka-chatmates and they have been helping me to get through to overcome my mental struggles as an extrovert. It's not easy for me. Yeah.
Yes, it's not easy for all of us, Gion. Son,
Yes, yes, yes.
son, I hope na, unsa ni, I hope na like you feel like you don't know how many people can relate to this because murag the last time, di ba, like they mentioned na the last time they talked about it, nobody knew what they were saying because they were an introvert. So murag, your luck is changing because you sent a letter to a podcast where one half of the host is an introvert and like like kana bitong pagka-cynical, like very cynical bito kayong pag-sarcastic bito kayo na pagsulat ng manner sa letter, like I use that to cope with the struggles of life.
Yeah.
What are ways na murag kuan yung bounce back kuan ni as an introvert myself? Amot lang feel ako I am blessed said pud gyud sa akong friends kay like Twitter gani if mag-tweet na bitaw og sugod nga mura kog masad or murag mag-spiral na bitaw ko, like mag-spiral ako overthinking and like when is this going, oh wait kay murag uncertain ba kayo tanan, murag like wala ta kabalo, like mingkalit lang siya tapos wala ta kabalo ang binatog short lang bitaw kayo ang time na murag okay mawala ra ni siya ka murag gi-downplay sa tong salamat government, gi-downplay sa tong government ang murag threat sa virus pero karon kay murag when naman ni siya, so like feel ako lucky ko sa aspect sa pag-bounce back during the times where I spiral because I have friends who reach out good like like sa name
Reach out to.
or reach out to me kay di ba murag ang problem ni Sun kay they couldn't relate to being an introvert, but for me I have friends mang good like kuan bitaw mukalit lang sila chat, like kuan mukalit sila chat nga Aldi, whatever you're feeling na
Oh,
no gyud na dili ka alone, and I guess that's very important for me, the validation nga what I'm feeling is not an isolated case bitaw kay feel ako if mura bitaw wala ing ana nga validation nga oy you're not the only one feeling this kay murag mas ma-feel pa nako ang isolation bitaw na nagani physical isolation na pagi emotional isolation nga wala makaget sa akong feelings. So na
Aldi.
para ba na gira ba ang feeling ang murag akong sentiment. So
Yes, yes, yes. I could really understand you,
moto
Aldi.
kung kuan kay Son, like uh not every one of us monggod is blessed with a social circle bitaw is very attentive at all times na murag kuan murag unsa ni if natay times of trouble kay naagid sila or like they could relate to our struggles gyud pero you know, I don't know. I don't want to say it gets better. We're like very, I hate it. We're toxic positivity. Kaya it gets better. But, while it is getting better, it's
Yeah.
gonna get worse and it will be bad.
Son mentioned that he's socially inept and he's socially awkward when meeting out people. I just want to say don't be afraid to speak up for yourself. And being able to write with us is another leap of courage that he has
Oh my
taken
God,
up. Like it's
yes. I am
good.
so proud for you that.
We have appreciated your effort in expressing your story to us. Like you're transparent, you're honest with your feelings. That's good. Just like what you said, we always need a support group. We always need a friend, an outlet, a company where we could vent out our inner struggles, where we could uh, share our problems, we could ease the burden inside of us. Yes. How, Aldi, what can you say about more of that?
Um, I agree yun na we all need a social group, and for the people nga wala kayo social circle na that can relate to them, na murag can really relate to their struggles. I hope the listeners of this podcast kay grabe ang char, di ba, grabe isikat na di kay tamurag to be able to build a really solid community, but I hope na if people, you
Yeah.
know, murag, if people will listen to this podcast, I hope they share it to their friends nga feel nila is going through the same thing because, you know, although it is a digital community that we're trying to build, it's a community nonetheless. And a community is what we really need in these trying times. People who can relate to us, bitaw.
So yeah, and I also wanted to give advice to Son no, because he said he has been overthinking about he is socially awkward, he's socially inept, he's not capable of uh, fitting in a social circle. It's just ano, what makes us so insecure because there are many murmurings playing around our head, and I think those murmurings aren't true. Our thoughts playing around our mind could be so powerful that it could control or manipulate us, and if we do not confront it, it could be a worse, right? I have to say that we make our own self-reflection, magmuni-muni tayo sa sarili natin, and start cultivating positive thoughts. Like, positive mindset. So, dear letter sender, son, I know you're a strong individual and you have this ability to overcome those inner struggles. I understand you being an introvert. If only you could reveal your identity, siguro mahimo gyud tag friends.
Na,
Because you remind me of someone,
na,
son. So please don't
don't
be
be shy.
shy.
Like, I feel like this episode, more than just being relatable for introverts, is relatable good siya for anyone
Oh,
and everyone who's affected by the pandemic. And I hope na murag, I mag-final words na ta Christine because kaano. So
oh.
my final words or final sentiments is this in this kay murag to Son and to every son out there who is listening to the podcast. I hope na you get the courage or you get the bravery or you get the strength to weather through this storm kay murag very uncertain times, and I hope na you prioritize yourself, like you prioritize your mental health. Don't be afraid to take a step back on the things na murag you usually put 100% energy on, because murag it's a pandemic, you have an allowance to feel na murag dili nimo mahatag yun tanan, na you have an allowance not to give some time for yourself good. And yes, mao ko. Mao na ako final words na for son and for every son out there na murag you already struggle with social interaction, tapos in a time where social interaction is scarce na murag it's really na murag it really has an impact sa tong mental health. And I hope na son you come out of this pandemic stronger. And to every son out there, to our listeners, I hope each one of you comes out of this pandemic stronger.
Okay, and Kuano, as my final words, I would like to piggyback on what you have commented, Aldi, like to prioritize yourself. I mean, self-care is important for us. You mean, ano, try to meditate, try to eat healthy food, stay physically
Yes.
active, try to be gentle with yourself, try to calm down, and try to encourage those negative feelings. And I know temporary lang man pud na siya. And practice your self-worth. And one advice, limit your social media exposure and try not to compare yourself from other people. You
Yeah.
are unique. You are more than just on what you see on the screen. You are different, you are beautiful, you are handsome, and this COVID-19 pandemic is just temporary and we'll get to hang out with each other. And yeah, I'm so
Mm.
excited. I don't know when will this pandemic gonna end,
Yes,
Aldi?
but we might not know when this pandemic is ending, but we now know that this first episode of the Cram podcast has already reached its end. So,
Yeah, it's the end of our podcast episode. So connect with us by liking our Facebook and by subscribing to our YouTube channel. You could also listen to
yeah.
Spotify If you have more stories to share, don't forget to fill out our Google Forms. We will be waiting for your responses there. You do always remember that you are not alone in this battle. We're all in this together. We may have doubts and despairs every time, but that doesn't mean we have to stop. Never give up. Kapit lang mga beshies. So stay tuned for more episode. And until next time,
Bye! Stream
bye!
life goes on.